All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome in. Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Thursday edition of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Appreciate you all joining me as we continue rolling along this week. Earlier this week, we had J.J. Burton joined us on the podcast, former Chiefs wide receiver. Also had former Chiefs Pro Bowl long snapper and also a former analyst for the Chiefs radio network, Kendall Gammon, joined us on the podcast yesterday morning. And tonight, we're going to make it three in a row, going for the three-peat. It is going to be Jason Dunn, former Chiefs tight end, and also coached high school football, college football for a long time. He is very kind enough to give us some time here on the Chiefs Zone podcast. We've had Jason on the podcast several times in the past. A guy with a lot of great analysis, in my opinion, and I think everyone who comes on the podcast does a great job. Certainly, I would say what makes Jason unique is he does a really great job of interacting with Chiefs fans on social media. So if you haven't already, go look up Jason Dunn on social media. Give him a follow because he always takes the time to interact with fans. He's also the co-host of the Chief Concerns podcast with Marcus Dash. Marcus has also been on this podcast before several years ago. Got to reconnect with Marcus. Haven't done that in quite some time. So hopefully we can make that happen this offseason. But Jason's always got an interesting perspective on things, and he's very well connected with the organization. I think more than many realize. So I'm excited to have Jason on to talk about the Chiefs coaching hires. He has a connection to Chad O'Shea, just like Kendall Gammon, because Jason was on the team back when O'Shea got his first NFL opportunity as a volunteer assistant with the Kansas City Chiefs, working on the offensive side of the football. So we'll pick Jason Dunn's brain and see what he has to say about Chad O'Shea coming to Kansas City, as well as Eric Bieniemy returning to KC. Hey, technically they're both returning to Kansas City, so going to talk to Jason about that and more here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. We've got a few NFL games left: Championship Sunday, the Super Bowl, hell, even the Pro Bowl. You guys want to attend NBA games, NHL games, college basketball, baseball season is coming up real soon. All you've got to do is get your tickets over at SeatGeek. And if you're a new SeatGeek customer, use my promo code FARZIN. You'll save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets at checkout. New customers, enter my promo code FARZIN, $20 out of your first order from SeatGeek. All right. Some breaking news that came out this evening. It does involve the AFC West, and that is Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the LA Chargers. Now, I guess you could say the former defensive coordinator of the LA Chargers. He has accepted the head coaching position for the Baltimore Ravens, and that one, big shoes to fill. I think a couple of these head coaching vacancies, and there are a lot of them this season. I think we're going to see 10 new head coaches to be exact. Obviously, some positions have been filled. We're starting to see more and more. I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, were waiting for that first domino to fall, that first domino being John Harbaugh accepting that job with the New York Giants. And now we're starting to see other head coaching positions get filled, and we're starting to see some offensive coordinator roles get filled as well. The Chargers did add Mike McDaniel to their coaching roster, but they are going to lose their defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter, as he is now the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. I think there are two very interesting head coaching jobs. Actually, I'll say three. One of them is filled by John Harbaugh in the New York Giants job, because I think there's a lot of potential with that Giants offense for the future. With Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, I think they've got a really underrated receiving group. I believe it's Wan'Dale Robinson, whose contract is expiring this offseason. Don't quote me on that. But if they can find a way to keep him, and I think adding Harbaugh, hey, why wouldn't you want to stay in New York to play under John Harbaugh? That I think can really be a significant addition for the New York Giants. Then we have this Baltimore Ravens job where you have a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. And what can Jesse Minter do? And what offensive coordinator is he going to hire? Because obviously this is a more defensive-minded coach. But listen, as a head coach, you are going to be hands-on with your quarterback. You have to be in some shape or form. But I would also imagine at the same time, he's going to give the offensive coordinator the play-calling responsibilities and also giving them a big responsibility with the offense. Kind of like how Andy Reid does for Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive side of the football here in Kansas City. I'd be very curious to see who Jesse Minter hires. One thing to keep in mind, Matt Nagy did interview for the head coaching job in Baltimore, and I know he missed out on that Tennessee job with Robert Saleh becoming the head coach there? What is the possibility that he goes to one of those two teams, Baltimore and Tennessee, who he interviewed with, may have not gotten the head coaching job, but the reports were out there that if he doesn't get a head coaching job, he wants to go somewhere where he can be the offensive coordinator and be the play caller for that team. Well, the two teams that he interviewed for, Tennessee and Baltimore, they hired defensive coordinators as their head coach. Saleh for the Titans and Minter for the Ravens. So usually when you hire a defensive-minded coach to be your head coach, that generally leads to the offensive coordinators being the play callers for that team. So if Nagy, and I know he interviewed with the Philadelphia Eagles, we'll see what ends up coming out about that. I know that kind of is a difficult offensive coordinator job to get, not because a lot of people are trying to get that role, but I think people are wondering if that's one that's really worth even accepting. I'd be very curious to see if Nagy ends up reconnecting with the Ravens and the Titans to see if they'd be interested, or if he would be interested in becoming their offensive coordinator there. All right. So there's that out of the way. That is the big news. I mentioned this earlier in the week regarding Rob Gronkowski. He did an interview on Kay Adams' show talking about Chad O'Shea. By the way, I heard Mark Borrector, a former Chiefs wide receiver who was also on the team when O'Shea got his start with the Chiefs, he called him Chadio. I guess this is his nickname because even Gronk called him Chadio. So I guess Chadio is a thing among players who played under his guidance at one point or another. So Chadio, as his former players call him, Gronk had some strong praise for him. He mentioned that Randy Moss and Wes Welker, those two were well-established wide receivers by the time they got to New England. However, and this is the exact quote, he helped establish them and help that offense grow. He helped those wide receivers be on the same page as Tom Brady. He's got so much knowledge of the game. He's a smart guy, very smart. He knows the game of football, no doubt about it. He is probably a top 3 wide receiver coach in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. He actually went on to say for a moment that he is the best wide receiver coach. Then he kind of stopped and rephrased his line of thinking and said, top 3 wide receiver coach. Don't know why he had a change of heart there, but hey, if you're going to hire who Gronk thinks is a top 3 wide receiver coach, this is probably a big win for Kansas City. Look, the wide receiver room has way too much potential for them to drop passes, not run good routes, the routes not be as crisp and solid. I mean, there's just too much talent and potential for that. And I really hope they find a way to bring back Tyquan Thornton. I know I keep saying that every episode, but that's the one name I think Kansas City must bring back in order for the offense to thrive and succeed. And, you know, what about the development of Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and potentially Tyquan Thornton and Jalen Royals? Well, Gronk credited Chad O'Shea for Julian Edelman's career. He says word for word, I would say he is responsible for Julian Edelman's career in New England. Oh, by the way, what ended up happening to Julian Edelman? He got Super Bowl MVP the year the Patriots beat the Rams in that low-scoring game. 1 year before, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, the core unit with the Chiefs, got their first championship. So, I mean, that is Chad O'Shea's resume. So for him to come into Kansas City, this is pretty significant. And this is someone who, more likely than not, will probably become an offensive coordinator again someday. Just probably needs some more experience coaching at the wide receivers position and will eventually get that opportunity. For right now, he is a wide receivers coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, something I didn't realize before, Eric Bieniemy and Chad O'Shea, those two guys work together in Minnesota. So there is some familiarity there. Andy Reid bringing back a familiar offensive-minded coach in Bieniemy, who started in Kansas City as a running backs coach, transitioned to the offensive coordinator. And Bieniemy certainly I would say he had a big hand in this. I would imagine Andy Reid has the final word on all of it, but bringing in Chad O'Shea, reuniting with him after time in Minnesota together. So I'm excited to see how this all works for Kansas City, because this is what they really need right now. Patrick Mahomes has got to have the best offensive line possible. Now, you're not going to get all pros on all 5 spots, but guys who can get the job done is the most important thing. You're going to need guys at the wide receiver position who can get the job done. And I think being under Eric Bieniemy and Chad O'Shea's guidance will certainly help more than hurt, I would imagine. So that is very important for this Chiefs team right now. Now, as we continue our discussion with the Kansas City Chiefs and their coaching staff starting to take form here, take shape here, one thing I did want to ponder, and I'm going to ask Jason Dunn about this when he comes on in a few minutes. Would the Chiefs consider bringing back the fullback position? I know that's not the most exciting topic out there right now amongst Chiefs Kingdom, but think for a moment. Why would we need to ponder the fullback position? I think there are a couple of reasons. Number one, the last season Kansas City had a fullback was Michael Burton, who is now with the Denver Broncos. Michael Burton's last season was also Eric Bieniemy's final season with the Chiefs, 2022. Ever since Michael Burton left, the Chiefs have not had a fullback. Matt Nagy, and I don't know whose decision that was, if that was a Matt Nagy decision, if that was an Andy Reid decision. We don't know exactly. But they did away with the fullback position around the same, right at the same time Bieniemy left for Washington. Now that Bieniemy's back, is there a reason to maybe consider the fullback position? I know a lot of times teams will have a tight end line up as a fullback. I remember years ago, whenever a fullback would go down with an injury, they would maybe use that 3rd or 4th string tight end, depending how many tight ends you have on the team, that would serve as your fullback for the remainder of the season. I mean, listen, when you look at some of the fullbacks Kansas City's had over the years, guys like Kimball Anders, Tony Richardson, I remember Mike Cox, who was with the team in the Todd Haley era. I think he was underrated. Rolando McClain, who was a Pro Bowler with Baltimore, came to Kansas City for a little bit. Anthony Sherman, who was very reliable as a fullback and as a special teams player. Michael Burton, I know that teams don't have, there aren't a lot of teams with fullbacks nowadays in the NFL, but at the time, in 2021, 2022, Michael Burton was one of the better fullbacks in the league. Again, I get it. Small sample size, not a lot in the pool to really take out of, but still one of the better fullbacks among teams that use fullbacks. So I think it's worth considering here, because the last 3 years, in 2023, the first year with Nagy, the Chiefs ranked 17th in rushing. Then they ranked 26th, and this past season, 24th in rushing. Last year, last offensive coordinator role with Eric Bieniemy, starting in 2018, the Chiefs ranked 15th, then 22nd, 16th in 2020, 13th in 2021, and then 20th in 2022, Bieniemy's last season with the Chiefs as an offensive coordinator. Now coming back to that. So not that the running back room was ever great or viewed very highly, but certainly something to be aware of. I mean, look at the Chicago Bears this year. Number 1 in the NFC in rushing, 3rd in the league overall. And that was when he was the running backs coach. He's obviously got a strong emphasis on the running back position. Obviously, he's going to maybe try to push and campaign for the Chiefs to get Jeremiah Love if he's there at number 9. Or maybe even someone who the Chiefs could seriously consider trading up for. Obviously, a lot of factors have to come into play. His word is not the final word. In fact, it's not even the second to last word. But I think Andy Reid would certainly strongly consider it. Here's something to keep in mind, because I know there's this complaint out there that the Chiefs didn't even bother interviewing anyone. Listen, we don't even know if that's even true or not at this moment, because Chad O'Shea quietly became the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. We had no inkling whatsoever that he was being interviewed by the Chiefs. So I would say, if this is who Andy Reid really wanted to bring back, I say we trust that. Look, it worked great from 2018 to 2022. Never less than 6 in total offense or points scored. Look, if you can go 5 years in a row to be top 6 in those two categories, your offense thrived. Your offense kicked ass. I mean, when was the last time you had that? It was in the early 2000s when the Chiefs ranked in the top 6 4 years in a row under Dick Vermeil and Al Saunders. So, and listen, I think ever since the Dick Vermeil era, the offense has really come and gone. I mean, yes, there was that one great year with Matt Castle, Dwayne Bowe, when Dwayne Bowe had 15 touchdown grabs. I know as a unit, they didn't do very well in the passing department, but the rushing game was number 1 in the NFL that year. And Jamal Charles certainly gave some highlights during those years, but the offense in general just didn't click consistently for a long period of time. And the Chiefs offense needs to go back to that, because I do fear the defense a little bit, maybe not being as strong as it was each of the last 3 years. That is a bit of a concern of mine. So I'm curious to see how the Chiefs go about that stuff this offseason as they continue to put together the rest of their coaching staff, and that will quickly translate to the combine. And let's be honest, at the combine, when there are a lot of agents there, that's when a lot of these free agent deals tend to be made. So we'll see if the Chiefs end up being part of that. Of course, they've got a lot to figure out with the salary cap, and I'll ask JD about that as well when he joins us here in a couple of minutes. Here's one thing I do want to get into before we bring JD in. I mentioned Jesse Minter. He just became the head coach of the Ravens. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Spags interviewed with the Ravens at one point. But with Spags, man, it's like, yeah, he didn't do well as a head coach with the St. Louis Rams. But I'm seeing some of these hirings across the NFL. Look, as a Chiefs fan, I'm glad that Spags is staying in Kansas City. But as a fan of football, objectively speaking, does this guy not deserve a second chance as a head coach? I mean, what is it with teams now? Teams have done a first round of interviews with Spags this year. Only one team this year, but in years past, Spags has gotten looks for a second chance at being a head coach, but nothing that led to a second interview. Again, as a Chiefs fan, great. I love it. Keep him in Kansas City. But as a football fan, and listen, I'll say this because I said this about Bieniemy when he was with the Chiefs and for 5 years could never get a head coaching job, which to me was ridiculous. I never wanted Bieniemy gone. But for Bieniemy, I wanted him to become a head coach because he absolutely deserved it. And I'll say the same exact thing right now about Spags. Yeah, I of course would love Spags to stay in Kansas City. But that guy deserves a second chance, does he not? Now, I don't know if Spags wants to become a head coach. I would imagine he certainly would be interested. Otherwise, I don't think he would waste anyone else's time, especially his own time, interviewing for jobs. And again, those first round of interviews, they're usually Zoom meetings, and they're not as long as those second round of interviews usually are. So I think he deserves one more chance at being a head coach. Because what is his age right now? I believe he is 64 years old. Older than that. He turns 67 at the end of this calendar year on December the 21st. So, okay, I get it. Wanting to hire a 66, someone who's going to turn 67 later this year, not ideal. But given the good job he's done as a defensive coordinator, I mean, I think he deserves that, does he not? But hey, again, as a Chiefs fan, I can't say I'm complaining too much, but I just have to get that out there. Just kind of looking at Spags and what he's accomplished as a defensive coordinator with the Giants and doing that all over again in Kansas City in a much higher level as well, winning 4 rings. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no defensive coordinator, maybe not even an offensive coordinator, that has 4 Super Bowl rings. I could be wrong, but I think Spags has that. Now, are there special teams coordinators with 4 Super Bowl rings? I mean, obviously, Tobe has 3. I don't think he has a 4th as a special teams coordinator. So I've said it many times. In my opinion, Spags is the best defensive coordinator of all time. And I think Romeo Crennel, Dick LeBeau, they're up there right behind him as the defensive coordinators. But, man, he deserves a second chance. As a Chiefs fan, hey, you want to finish your career as a defensive coordinator because maybe that's better than some of these head coaching opportunities? Have at it. Certainly not something I'm going to take issue with. NFL playoffs, let's go. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, makes every moment feel bigger. In the postseason, the game shifts fast, and with DraftKings live betting options, you can stay right in the moment. Make every moment matter this NFL postseason with DraftKings. And as you know, it is Championship Sunday this week. I'm going to give you my biggest game for Sunday. I'm going to go with the NFC Championship game, Rams, Seahawks, division rivals. This is going to be a good one. Obviously, it's going to be their 3rd time playing each other. The first time, the Rams won by 2 points. The last time they played was that epic Thursday night football game in December. That was when the Seahawks won by 3 in overtime. Obviously, both games came down to the wire. This one won't be any different. Plus, DraftKings has your back with early exit protection, meaning if the player in your NFL prop bet goes down in the first half, you will still get paid in cash. With DraftKings, you're covered through the entire first half, so why bet player props anywhere else? New customers, here's your shot. Bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code ChiefZone. That's code ChiefZone to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, joining us right now on the podcast, a former Chiefs player during the Dick Vermeil era. A very exciting time for Chiefs football back then with the offense, just the excitement that time, and also been doing a lot of coaching over the years as well. Also, the co-host of the Chief Concerns podcast. Excited to welcome back into the podcast, Jason Dunn here on the podcast. JD, appreciate you taking time to join us. How are you? How have you been?
Man, I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. True, staying busy. Trying, like you said, on Chief Concerns. So we've been giving everybody a little bit of the goodness on our days that we're heading, especially during the off season. We got Monday and Wednesday is the days we usually come out, talk about the draft. Usually on Monday, Wednesday night is pretty much kind of, hey, the line's open for everybody. Just talk about Chief stuff. But if you want to come on and show your face, maybe say a little thing, man, we give you the link and you come on in and say what's up.
What's it been like over these last few years doing the podcast? Because you're starting to see more and more players doing it. Obviously, Travis Kelce, very notable, who does it. Amon-Ra St. Brown does a popular podcast. I think Micah Parsons does as well. And as far as, former Chiefs, I know your teammate, Priest Holmes, and I believe you were a guest on his podcast. He started doing his own last year. Joe Valerio, he's been doing it for quite some time now, and he does a great job. I'm sure there are other former Chiefs as well. Mike DeVito, I know, was doing it for a while as well. What's it been like to be that former player and now talking about the game, giving your insight as a podcast co-host?
It's been excellent, man. The thing is, we have a lot of knowledge that we just want to be able to give away and probably, pull the curtains back for people to see, to let them know exactly what happens in a locker room on a football field, what the communication is and the relationships that they do see, things they don't know. And so what you don't get on some of the, Hard Knocks and some of these TV shows, you're going to find out from us, some of the great stories, but how everything works intricate parts. And, we all have a voice. I love coming out, giving my opinion. I don't know if the Chiefs listen to me, but if people listen to me, I appreciate it because I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about, not just from playing, but also from coaching. So it's been something, man, that I've actually enjoyed a lot, Farzan, a lot. So, that's why we've been doing it for the past, I want to say now 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Good run. Yeah, no, you and Marcus do a great job. Marcus has been on this podcast before as well, and I enjoy hearing the clips you guys put out. And again, it's Chief Concerns for anyone who wants to check it out on Instagram, YouTube, X. You guys do a really good job putting that stuff out there. And that's kind of one thing I wanted to talk about with you. I know you mentioned, talking about some of the communication, how that all works. The coaching staff, it's been a big deal these last few years. I'll say this, I've been doing my podcast since 2007. Obviously, the head coach, the coordinators, those get talked about quite a lot. But I have never seen a position coach get so much attention. And I know you've got a connection to Connor Embry because his father coached tight ends when you were there under Herm Edwards and Tony Gonzalez. I think that was his last few years in Kansas City as well.
Right.
Yes. But people had a lot of criticism for Embry as well as Nagy. They're moving on from those two guys. What do you make of just some of the coaching issues that have happened over the last couple of years? And why should Chiefs fans feel confident that EB coming back is going to make a big difference?
So, Varzit, if I had to surmise on, maybe some of the issues might have been, is, when you have a young group of guys that come in, they want to do things their way, how it's been in college. And so when they get into the NFL, they're learning from, obviously, their coach to put them in the right, position and how to play. I think sometimes what ends up happening is the communication that some of the coaches give. Sometimes the guys just don't really adopt as much, or they may not take it as serious. And so part of the problem goes into where I'll say Nagy, he just has a different style than EB does. I think he's more of a more joyful fellow. Not to say EB's not, but I think he's more of an authoritarian. EB is, as opposed with Nagy. Nagy, I think, has moved into a realm of, becoming a head coach. He manages guys really well. He did a great job when he was up in Chicago. And so sometimes what you try to do, you try to placate to some guys that's out here in a particular way to get them to kind of do, what you want them to do. And what ends up happening sometimes as a coordinator or sometimes as coaches, you give guys, a lot of sugar and maybe a lot of leeway. And sometimes that may not be good for certain individuals. And I think maybe that could have happened maybe with Nagy, as far as maybe not getting on guys when things were happening, as far as like some of the penalties or maybe where it would be, in scheme wise, it wasn't just as tight as it should have been and what we've seen in the past.
Well, that's actually something I want to follow up on because I think the big thing, and this has been talked about, for really all of the 2025 season, is that we keep seeing repeated mistakes. You mentioned the penalties. Jawan Taylor had 55 in 3 years, which is just crazy to even think about. The drops was insane a couple of years ago, and that kind of came back this season. And I know Andy Reid in one of his pressers was like, I don't even know where those came from all of a sudden. Because the idea from a lot of people, and I kind of have this idea as well, is that Nagy doesn't hold guys accountable, or maybe he does, but maybe not well enough, whereas EB has. Because I think if you look back in the 5 years EB was here, you didn't see a lot of repeated mistakes. And I think one question is, well, how do you hold guys accountable? Is it yelling at them? Because Bieniemy is that, old school, no nonsense guy that does yell more than the average coach today. So my question to you is, how does an offensive coordinator specifically hold his players accountable?
I've had some incredible offensive coordinators, from John Gruden to Jimmy Ray to Al Saunders. I've had some really wonderful, wonderful guys. Mike Solari. I mean, you can name it. And everybody had a different style. I think some of the effectiveness, at least for me, and I think it's based on the individual, Farzine. It really is. How's he going to get the most out of you? If that coach can tap into that person and say, look, I've touched a button to get that out of you, then I'm gonna be the most effective coach for that person. I think EB, what he touches with guys is saying, hey, look, I don't care who you are. I don't care what your contract states. I don't care if you feel like you're going to be a starter. If you don't get the job done, you're going to be replaced. Somebody else is going to be in here. And he makes it plain. And he'll stay on top of you. Where I think Nagy is more of like, hey, look, guys, let's try to figure this thing out. I guess, you may have some issues and some problems. Let's work through these things. And EB has that too, but his is like you said, a no-nonsense type of thing. But sometimes it is yelling. But sometimes it is like sometimes you got to give that sugar to certain guys. You just got to find out what makes each guy tick. That's really what it is. And so EB does a great job of doing that because he's going to find out exactly what it is that's going to make you tick.
His specialty is obviously the running back position. And I think here in Kansas City, his first year as the running backs coach, same year Andy Reid got here, Jamal Charles had his best season. He unfortunately dealt with some injuries, and then you saw Charkandrick West, Spencer Ware do really well filling in for him. I remember Ware in 2016 was one of the better pass-catching running backs, which is, an important asset in an Andy Reid-style offense. Kareem Hunt led the league in rushing in 2017. Damian Williams, he was a beast in the postseason for the Chiefs under EB. But we just didn't see that same impact from the running backs under Nagy. What can we expect from the running backs? Whether it's going to be Brashard Smith, maybe they bring back Kareem Hunt and or Isaiah Pacheco. Maybe there's a possibility they get someone in free agency or the draft. I know Jeremiah Love's a popular name. I don't think he'll be there at 9 as much as I'd love it. But what do you think we can see in terms of improvement with the running back position?
I think you have somebody who speaks the language for the running backs to understand exactly what it is that they need to do. He'll tell them the intricate parts, the junction points, what the blocking scheme is. And not only is it convenient to the running backs, but also, too, it will go through the entire ranks, O-line, tight ends, wide receivers. Everybody want to understand their parts in the running game. I think we missed that with Nagy. Nagy, he's a quarterback by trade, right? And he's done a great job. But sometimes if you haven't really played the position, you have a limited perspective on the things that you need to teach certain guys. And so what EB's going to do is he's going to tell the running backs like, hey, look, this is what we're expecting on this play. Patience on this play right here, what you might have to do, fundamentals, technique, all those things are going to be emphasized. And so, like I said, he does a great job because he was one of the best in college. He came into the NFL as a running back. And so when guys see somebody who's played that position, played it at a high level, you got to respect it. You have to respect it. And so like I'm sitting there saying, if I've seen the vision, I know exactly what certain plays look, zone, man, any type of scheme that you're doing on the run game, he can definitely give that up to the guys and let them know exactly what they need to be doing.
The last time EB was on the team was in 2022. That was the last year they had the fullback position. Since then, they've done away with that. Michael Burton, yeah, that's right. He's no longer on the team. He's now with Denver and has been in Denver since then. Do you think, if you had to bet on it, do you think the Chiefs bring back the fullback position now that EB's back?
I think you could possibly use like an H-back, like another tight end that can do that. As long as if he's good at blocking, and he can line up in the backfield, and he can stick his nose in and hit a linebacker and moving 2 or 3 yards out of the way, I think you can use a guy like that. And if not, then EB will implement a fullback. I don't think that's a bad deal. The question is, do you use a roster spot for a position like that where you could utilize maybe a tight end who's might be a little bit more conducive in the passing game as opposed to maybe just a bruiser, right? And just opening holes. So.
By the way, I have to go back to your comment when you mentioned John Gruden, who you played for a little bit in Philly. John Gruden, who's now with Barstool Sports, he shared a really funny story. I think it was his first year coaching there. Mm-hmm. And I guess you guys had a really bad game on offense one day. And Gruden admitted to listening to WIP 94. And by the way, shout out to Jody McDonald. He's been on this podcast. Phenomenal guy. He's done a lot of national radio, also local radio for WIP 94 there. And he said people were calling in saying, F Gruden, F that guy, he's got to go. And so when you mentioned Gruden, I was like, wait, you played for Gruden? And then I remember it was in Philly. And every time I think of Gruden in Philly, I always think of that story he brings up about Philly fans.
Well, that's an introduction to the Philly. I'm telling you that media up there, man, you know exactly how it is. They're crazy. They're fanatics, and they'll let you have it. They'll let you know real quick if they like you or don't.
Were you there when they threw snowballs at Santa Claus? Or was that a different year?
That was a different year.
Oh, okay.
So I'd already left, but I heard about it though.
Yeah,
I heard about that one.
Let's get away from the offensive coordinator position and talk about the new wide receivers coach, Chad O'Shea. He was a volunteer assistant in 2003. Obviously, that was an exciting year for you guys. Starting off 9-0, everything you guys did on offense, the defense led the league in interceptions, and Dante Hall on special teams doing his thing. First of all, before we get fully into Chad O'Shea, I think it's interesting because you have your head coach, you have the three coordinators, you have the position coaches. Sometimes there are assistant position coaches like assistant QB, assistant DBs. You have some of those as well. Then you have quality control coaches and then volunteer assistants. How many assistant coaches does the average NFL team have?
Ooh, man. Shoot. Let me think. I could probably look up at the picture and tell you. So probably assistant coaches, somewhere around about 12 to 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that include like volunteer assistants like a Chad O'Shea?
Volunteer coaches, because you'll have a slew of guys come in during the summer, and sometimes you retain those guys. And Chad being a volunteer coach, I guess Chad was like, hey, listen, I'll go ahead and just put my time in so I could get a chance and opportunity maybe to get on the staff, which he did. He ended up getting on the staff with the Chiefs for a couple more years, and it paid off. But you have those guys, man, and you can look around, man, you might have 20 guys. 22 is like, hey, who's this? And, they're showing up in the meeting room. Yeah. There's a number of guys that's there, and you don't quite know who everybody is until it's like cut down too. So you look at the 53-man roster, it's cut down on coaches as well. So,
I just think it's interesting because, and I don't know how many people had Chad O'Shea on their radar. I know a lot of people on social media were campaigning to see if the Chiefs would be interested in bringing back Greg Lewis because he probably was let go in addition to John Harbaugh in Baltimore there, because usually when head coaches get let go, the majority of the coaching staff gets let go as well. I'm curious what your reaction is to Chad O'Shea becoming the new wide receivers coach, and what can we expect for some of these young wide receivers like Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, hopefully Tyquan Thornton comes back, guys with serious potential who need some development and some guidance to being better receivers.
A great hire. I said this on our show, but Chad is such a smart guy. He's an intellectual guy that understands the ins and outs of wide receiver position. He was a quarterback in college, but he was around Charlie Joyner and, like I said, Al Saunders. He got up there and was in Minnesota with those guys, Randy Moss and whatnot, and then he got out there with New England. But Chad has been around the league for a long time. He's been coaching wide receivers for quite some time. He knows everything. And when I'm telling you, when you have young guys, we have young guys at the position right now. Jalen Royals just got in this past year. Hadn't really, I want to say, scratched the full potential of where they can be. Chad O'Shea will get him right there in speed real quick. And so he's also kind of a no-nonsense guy. He's all about business. But one thing they'll know is everything that you need to know about wide receiver position and play. He's not going to leave anything out. He's not going to let those guys fail. So he's going to expect excellence because that's how he teaches. That's who he is. They're going to love him in that room. They will. And when they get there, they're going to be like, wow, like we didn't know we're going to see all of these different things like that. And Chad's just going to do that, man.
Well, one thing that kind of got me excited is I just heard the other day, Gronk was on Kay Adams' show, and he said something to the effect of how Chad O'Shea is responsible for the development of Julian Edelman. Oh, by the way, who was the Super Bowl 53 MVP? Julian Edelman. Now, I'm not suggesting, Rice or Worthy will get an MVP in the Super Bowl. Maybe they will. That'd be great. But, I think that really speaks volumes to what he did. And I think that's certainly something to be aware of on his resume.
It is. And what you do is you carry that into, with the body of work and saying, listen, I've had Randy Moss, Julian Edelman, Wells Welker. I mean, you name it. Deion Branch. I mean, you could name the guys. And if guys can't listen to a guy that taught these dudes, then you probably don't need to be on an NFL team. Then you just don't want to get better. But it's on the person, man, to take the coaching, take the teaching, and try to ascend to where you can be. And Chad's going to show them that. Like, listen, you did this year, you could do that much better this year. And so it's all about how do you make progression, okay? And with the Chiefs, I said this, I think it was underwhelming what we did on the wide receiver room. Like you said, drop balls. Some of the route running might not have been as crisp as it should have been, depth-wise and everything. We ran, I call it kind of scramble drill. That's what we do sometimes when, Pat gets outside the pocket, which he's brilliant at, and the guys understand what to do. But now when you're talking about the details of everything, Chad will provide that for the players.
One other coaching question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, when I know in press conferences, post-game press conferences, when coaches get asked a very specific, detailed question about a certain play, they can't really give an answer because they have to go watch the film, and the cameraman that has that film, they're always high up. And the point I'm trying to get to here is whenever you watch games, they show the coordinators, all three coordinators, Nagy, Spags, and Tobe, they're all on the field. And I would imagine Bieniemy will continue to be on the field like he was previously with the Chiefs as the OC. And then sometimes in the background, you'll notice some of the assistant coaches. And I recognize the majority of them by their face. It feels like they're all on the field as well. Do you know if the Chiefs have any assistants in the booth? Because I don't know if they do, unless we just don't know about it. That's kind of a surprise to me that all the coordinators and all the position coaches are on the field. Does that mean something to you?
It does. I'll be shocked if they didn't have somebody up there, to be honest with you. I mean, because the thing is, you only have a certain vantage point on the field. And so what you want to be able to see is obviously from a bird's eye view, certain coverages, what they're doing a little bit defensively, maybe some of the subbing in and out. But they're having spotters for sure. So I'm sure somebody's in the booth. And maybe this guy just missing them, but there's somebody there for sure.
I don't know if this has ever happened when you were a coach or if when you were a player. When I was at KU, Charlie Weiss was the head coach, and Dave Campo, who long time with the Dallas Cowboys. I remember the defense for KU got a takeaway inside 2 minutes. And usually, when they're trying to make their way down to the locker room for halftime, it can take a little bit. So they were trying to, get ahead of schedule. And they actually, as soon as they were on the elevator, got down, KU's offense turned the ball back over. And so Dave Campo, for a little bit, had to coach from the field. And I remember one of my colleagues actually noticed that. And he asked Charlie Weiss in the press conference, he's like, is Dave Campo now coaching from the field? He's like, oh, no, we gave the ball back. And he was trying to hurry to get to the locker room in time for halftime. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you or any coach
No. But the thing is, guys could do it on the fly, right? I mean, you still call the same coverages and defenses, and the guys just have to play it. So, and the thing is, because somebody has been up in the booth and what you've kind of seen, you kind of rely on tendencies, what you know from what in film and all those different things of that nature as well. So.
A couple of questions with you, JD. Obviously, this is going to be a very interesting free agency because right now, and I remember your quarterback, Trent Green, mentioned this in one of the games, I think against Tennessee, with the salary cap. Right now, it's, according to Over the Cap, it's about $63 million over. Obviously, cutting Jawan Taylor, which I think is inevitable, that will save a big chunk. You still have a lot of work to do. I think Mike Dana, there might be a couple other cap casualties. Surely they'll try to see what they can do with Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones contracts. What kind of a free agency are you expecting from the Chiefs?
I've always said that for us to move in the direction we want to move into, I feel free agency, we had to probably rely on like running back. I'd rather deal with running back in free agency than in the draft. And the reason why, Farzan, is because you want a guy that could come in who's ready to plug and play from day one. He doesn't have to learn, how fast everything is moving, the breathing of the offense, how the speed of the game is going to change. And so there's some very good free agents out there as far as running backs. And so the thing is, we've been talking about home run hitters and all these different things, right? Everybody talked about how bad the running back room was. I didn't quite agree with them. I think our offensive line wasn't as great as they should have been, which they weren't. But if you have a guy, that's going to come in and be ready, game ready. And so some of the top 3 to 5 guys in free agency at running back, I think we need to go after those guys.
Do you think there's a possibility Trent McDuffie will stay in Kansas City, because his name has been tossed out there as a trade candidate?
You know what? I know it's pretty early, but you can get draft capital maybe with Trent. Then you don't have to pay this big ticket that he's probably going to be asking for. And that's just really where the market is right now, Farzan. It's just what it is. And so he may be one of those guys that we may have to do something as far as trading away, to try to help us in some type of way, man, with the cap and stuff.
My last question to you, I've got to ask you about the whole week for Buffalo. Obviously, they had a heartbreaking loss. Josh Allen, who's great at what he does, but let's just be honest. I mean, he really did put the Bills in a bad position at times. I know there's a whole controversy with that catch and all, but I still think you got to look beyond that stuff at times, because officiating's bad and inconsistent, if we're being honest. But things got really interesting the other day with the press conference with the owner and their general manager. And the owner just kind of, the way he referred to Keon Coleman, Sean McDermott, the rest of the coaching staff, I mean, it really was just a PR disaster. I immediately thought, like, Clark Hunt wouldn't even do that. Clark Hunt's a very, what's the right word I'm looking for? He's very soft-spoken and doesn't like to speak too often. I was kind of surprised we didn't hear from him after the regular season, but he just doesn't feel the need to inject himself. And as much as we might want answers, sometimes less is more, I guess. When you saw all of this in Buffalo, what was your reaction?
Well, I caught little snippets of it. I felt it was really, really unprofessional by the upper management and how they handled everything. I know Sean McDermott was a guy that I played when he was in Philadelphia. I was with, man. Sean's a great guy. I was shocked by the move they made, firing him, because I was sitting there saying that Sean wasn't the one that had 5 turnovers. He didn't have the 4, from Josh Allen, and Cook had 1. It wasn't Sean's fault. It wasn't. So I think he just got a bad deal on that. But, as far as like talking about the players that you still have under your contract, they're still there in the building. I think, man, what you're doing is you're really going to lose the team. You're going to lose these guys to come out there and come play for you. You give them a complex doing things like that. So I think, man, it was poorly done, in bad taste. And to be honest with you, I would hope that there would be some type of reconciliation, right?
Yeah, I was about to ask, how do you recover from that?
You have to, like, in the media, is like, listen, I might have misspoke, might have been a little upset with some of the things I was saying. I didn't mean to say the things I was saying. I was trying to make a point of that somebody else was choosing a different position. Great position. We still want him. He's a great player. But I'm just saying maybe what the difference was in our philosophies and maybe our choices and guys. But I just think, man, it was in bad taste, man. It was in poor taste, really.
JD, for those who tuned in late, how can people check out Chief Concerns and listen to you and Marcus?
Man, Chief Concerns, like I said, we come on Monday and Wednesday now during the off season. You can come check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter. Come check me out. Instagram, I'm on there as well. I don't do a whole lot of TikTok and stuff like that. I could dance a little bit, but I don't really do no dancing on TikTok, man. So other than that, that's where we are. Come find us, Chief Concerns. And we usually come on at, 8:20, 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. So 7:15 out there in Kansas City. If you're out there, come check us out.
I think this is the first time you've been on this podcast with your dungeon now. I love the setup you got in the background with the podcast logo, the dungeon, the keys to victory. Because I see you doing all this stuff on Instagram, talking about stuff. You're pointing at the board because I see the X's and O's right behind your right shoulder there. I love that stuff. That's awesome. I just have
Yes,
books
sir.
in the background.
Well, for Isaiah, man, listen, I'm a player at heart. I can't help who I am, and I'm a coach. And so for me, this makes sense. I wanted to do a whole lot of this. I feel like this brings a great element for people to kind of teach them a little bit about football. So we have a lot of different people that come onto the podcast that try to get some knowledge, and I'm here for all of it. And if I can help them understand a little bit more, that's what I'm here to do, man. So this is me all day.
Check it out, Chief Concerns on YouTube and many other podcasting platforms where you can listen to a podcast. Hey, JD, always great stuff when you come on here. I appreciate your time, and be well. We'll be tuning in, and hopefully the Chiefs can have a good offseason and bounce back next year.
Man, Farzan, I appreciate it, my brother. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, my guy. All right.
All right. Thanks, JD. Take care.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, off he goes. Jason Dunn here on the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Big shout out to Jason making time for us here on the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Great insight from him, and always love talking to him, especially talking in depth with coaching. That is where I think Jason really delivers the best analysis. So big thank you to Jason for making time for us here on the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I want to give a big thanks to all of you guys joining me here on the Chiefs Zone Podcast on this Thursday. We've got a big snowstorm coming. It is winter is coming. It's already been here, but I guess the winter snowstorm is coming, so to say. And if you gotta stock up, go to Price Chopper, Hy-Vee, Hen House, wherever you gotta go. Stock up, do your stocking up, get your eggs, your milk, maybe some ice cream and beer. Hey, got some good sports action this weekend. UFC, Justin Gaethje, Patty the Batty, and then we've got Championship Sunday. So it'll be a nice weekend of sports for sure. So I guess you might as well stock up, stay inside, and stay warm. Hey, I'll be back tomorrow night. We'll do the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Join me for that. Until then, thank you all once again for joining me. Big thanks once again to Jason Dunn. I will talk to you all tomorrow for the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Peace out. Take care.